So we are here in Boonesboro, Maryland. We're right outside of Dan's Restaurant and Tap House. We have a very unique story that I want to bring to you guys today. So evidently, this gentleman right here, this is the White Rabbit. Evidently, from what he tells me, he was assaulted last night outside here in Boonesboro, Maryland, right outside of Dan's Restaurant and Tap House. Now, we don't have all the details of that worked out yet, but that is what I'm going to try to do right here and right now with this interview. So thank you very much for speaking with me, of course. It's nice to see you. My first question is so sort of just walk me through the timeline of what happened last night from your perspective. I know you have some video footage of it as well, but I just want to first hear it from your perspective. So walk me through what happened last night from your perspective. What's the timeline?
Alrighty. Well, first off, thanks for having me, Levi, and hello, everybody. Yeah. So last night in Boonesboro, Maryland, they had the carnival, and it's towards the closing of the carnival, and they had a fireworks display last night set for about 10:30. Yeah. So I came down here, and I've been here previously. I got my beard trimmed up. So, and while I was here the other day, I noticed Dan's Tap House, and I was checking out the menu there. There were some items that I really were interested in. Now, I wasn't here, and I wasn't exactly familiar with the festivities, the protests that happened prior with Sean Porter and the other people. So I came out to check it out. And I published some videos on my channel about Dan's Tap House because I knew about the reputation, but not the entire story. So I came out to check it out and see if I can get some food. Now, I carry my camera with me all the time just because I'm the White Rabbit and you never know what you're going to find. Yeah. So I had my GoPro with me last night, documenting as I usually do, walking around, and I came up to Dan's here to try and get some food. Yeah. So as I was checking it out, I checked out the menu once again. And as I was looking at the menu, the general manager there gave me a nice little wave, and I moved over the door to come in, and he came over and started shooing me away from the door. Now, this was earlier in the night, so I did not know this information at the time, and I asked him, who are you? He says, I'm the manager here. And he said that I cannot come in to eat, and I asked why. At first, it was because of the camera, but then he explained to me that the kitchen closed at 9 p.m., which is a valid reason, and I thanked him for that information, and I did not know that. But then I asked if I could get a drink, because I'd like to get a drink at the bar while I was here before I go watch the fireworks. Right. He then told me that I was not allowed to come in if I had the camera, and it wasn't recording at the time that he knew of, and I was willing to turn it off completely to go to the bar and get a drink. However, he then said, I'm not willing to let you in because I don't like you. So
he said those words?
He said, I don't like you.
I don't like you. That's the reason you can't. Okay.
And it is on. I have the video. So I then stood out here for a while and just stood here recording as people went in. The bar was still open. There were still people eating dinner. I then moved to the back to see more about the property, like where the vehicles were parked, and just check it out since I was here and they wouldn't let me in. Yeah. I then walked back up to the front here, and the entirety of Dan's Tap House staff came out and surrounded me and started harassing me on the street, giving me different lip and everything. And I believe they did it to ensure the safety of their customers to walk out. So they sent out the entire staff of employees to surround me so that their customers could leave, which is also a valid thing. But the fact that they were harassing me, and they were all drunk. This is all on video. You could see them were all glassy-eyed, slurred speech, and stumbling around and everything. So they were all surrounding me, giving me words. So that concluded. I then went down and watched the fireworks and came back up because I noticed the lights turn off at that point. So it's like, okay, they're packing up, everyone's going. So I stood around for about 15, 20 minutes and watched the entire staff of Dan's Tap House at the bar drink, shot after shot. And I have a video of them doing 3 shots consecutively. Within that time period, there were the female staff members who also apparently went over and decided to flash their rear ends to me while I was recording.
Through the window?
Through the window. So they stood in the doorway of the bar and started shaking their butts and flashed their butts while I was out here recording. And they're all there waving and having a grand old time. So then I decided to move to the back to see, because they all left the bar at this point, so I couldn't see anybody. So I moved to the back. And then I noticed a large crowd of people, probably about a dozen people or so, hanging out in the back of Dan's Tap House. And I could actively see drinks. You know, I could see the glass bottles and everything because there's lights behind them, so you could see it. And this is also on camera. It's very hard to see on the camera. It's GoPro, but you can see some things. So I was back there watching. They noticed me and started doing their things. So then we progressed through the night, and my transportation calls me and says, you know, it's time to go. So I'm headed back to the vehicle at this point. Now, right down the street here, I crossed the street and I'm on a public sidewalk. As I'm heading back to my vehicle, I noticed one of the underage workers that they claimed.
Claim was underage. You said quotations underage.
They claimed it was an underage worker, a minor, previously. I saw her loading up her vehicle, and then she runs inside, grabs the manager and other people, and they come out and say, hey, mother effer, and all that, you're not going to follow our staff around. And the general manager, Mike Skinner, proceeds to grab my camera and try and pull my camera. Thankfully, I had it wrapped around my wrist.
Right.
But he grabbed it, and I called him out on assault and everything.
So that's the assault we're talking about. That. Walk me through the assault, piece by piece, of what you claim was assault.
So the general manager, Mike Skinner, came up into my face and was, hey, mother effer, you're not going to harass my staff. You're not going to follow them around. Mind you, I was walking back to my vehicle on a public sidewalk. Yeah. So he comes up to me right in my face, gets right into my face, Levi, and grabs my camera, physically grabs my camera and tries to pull it from my hand to take it away from me. And I had it secured on my wrist, and I call him out on it in front of everybody. Now, they're all drunk at this point, and you can see it on the video. It's very clear. And he's like, that's not assault. That's not assault. Then he does it again. He says, he turns to his staff members and says, would this be assault if I grab the camera, and grabs it again? So I start screaming, don't touch me again, don't touch me again. And at that point, I start calling 911.
You called 911?
Did call 911.
I was going to ask you if police ever came.
Surrounded by about 5 or 6 people who were drunk at this point, and I was physically surrounded on a sidewalk, and I had no way out at that point. So I called 911, and I also called for some backup from a local. Thankfully, the backup arrived, and police arrived on scene. And I do want to mention the police officer that arrived on scene was one who responded out to Rice Tire with Sean Porter's protest, and he redeemed himself. And we did have a talk about the video that Sean Porter put out, and he mentioned that he did mess up on the beginning encounter with Sean by saying private property. So he did explain that to me, and he knew. And he's reading all of your comments, and he sees everyone, all the comments. But he redeemed himself. He stood up for our First Amendment right and everything, and he completely de-escalated the situation to where I felt completely safe at that point. It was wonderful.